Hey there, this is Yudron. I'm so happy to be here tonight talking about the Bodhisattva way. I see we have at least one person here tonight already. That's wonderful. And a big shout out to everybody who's watching this video. Most people watch it after the fact. Today we're going to be talking about 1, 2, 3, the third of the things that you perfect along the path of the Bodhisattva, a great awakening of the heart and mind. People are on the path of awakening their heart and mind. That's what comes to mind for Bodhisattva today. I guess there could be non-people who are doing that as well, but the main place, the main realm and traditionally in which we perfect ourselves as Bodhisattvas is as humans. It's thought that other realms don't have the same attributes and possibilities as this human realm, so it's kind of really perfect. So we go back to thinking about how wonderful it is that we were born a human, and a human who has time to watch YouTube, has a computer or a cell phone or something to watch it on, so has total access to incredible wisdom teachers, not me, but the wonderful teachers of various Buddhist traditions who populate the internet these days. So what were the first two perfections? Do you remember? First was generosity. Second was sutram. That means discipline, morality, ethics. And you don't really hear that one talked about very much these days, do you? Then the third one is this patience. And I'm really excited to talk about this tonight because I'm going to tell you the approach of the Bodhisattva to dealing with patience and dealing with abuse. Right up front, this is how the Bodhisattva deals with being abused. And these are very pertinent topics to our society today when we're acknowledging a lot of abuse in society and the effects it has on people. So all kinds of abuse and injustice and everything would follow on this category. In the old books, it was tended to be put in terms of being beaten up. Because mostly the books were written about men. and men in traditional agrarian societies. In Asia, the biggest threat was to, being attacked by enemies or thieves. These are the kinds of things that are discussed, and it really happened. Yogis in retreat were not immune to being set upon by thieves. I really should. It reminds me, in the Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, they can they very legitimately trace their ancestry back to the great Yogi Milarepa. And in a way, that story belongs to all of Tantric Buddhism. But we have Shabkar, who's a wonderful yogi, who has the first section of his biography has been translated. It's like really super thick. Hello, Tenzin Punsukla. Welcome back. So sometime we should talk about that, but I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm trying to keep things, more concise these days. So what is patience? Well, in this context, it's defined as being a feeling of being at ease, a feeling of being totally clear-headed and unconfused, and a feeling of being pervaded by compassion. So that's the state. If we sit there, let's sit for a sec. Just think, okay, I feel totally at ease. My body, my mind, I feel really clear. And I feel pervaded by compassion. Well, where does that come from? You know, it really, some people may naturally be that way, but most of us have to work on it. Okay. And so Tenzin's being practical. He's here live. And Tenzin, I assume you're a he. Most of the Tenzins I know, but not all of them, are males. So pardon me if you're female. So Tenzin's is multitasking, and that's a very honest thing to say. So how do we get to feel that way, compassionate, unconfused, at ease? Well, everybody needs a meditation practice, right? So the main practice of the sitting practice of the Bodhisattva yana is what? Shamatha, calm abiding. You're male, okay. Oh, great. Great, Mr. Punsuk. So you get that way, honestly, just by meditating, any kind of calming meditation with an object, without an object, etc. So and then through Vipassana, you get a big picture of what's going on in the world. You understand the nature of outside phenomena, and you get insight into your own lack of really inherent existence or identity, as they say in Buddhism. And then, of course, they do the special practices of, such as tonglen and cultivating the four immeasurables, limitless ones that we've discussed here before. But really, that's it. There's not like a ton of methods. There's some dharanis. They're a little like mantras on the sutra level, usually for purposes. But then we have the prajnaparamita dharani, right? So on. But basically, it's limited in scope. Exactly, you're basically a meditator. And at the same time, you're learning cognitively how to understand the principles of emptiness and so forth. So there you go. So what is patience? The state of patience is called an antidote. And what is it the antidote to? Well, anger. Anger is the number one thing. So anger is said to be like, what does anger feel like in your body? And what is the aftermath of having lost your cool do to you in your life? Feel free to put if somebody else is here besides Tenzin, put anything in the comment box you want to. So what does it feel like in your body? Well, you get all hot and you're tense and your heart is pounding, right? Your face is flushed if you're really going at it with anger. And do you sleep well? No. Do you feel peaceful? No. Do you feel happy? Absolutely not. So this is a terrible state to be in if you just think about like that whole being angry is a really good thing, which many people do feel that way. It's not a good thing for you. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your well-being. It's not good for your sleep. And ultimately, anger needs to be resolved on the Bodhisattva path before you gain enlightenment. Now, remember this Mahayana, this path of gradually refining these, perfecting yourself, basically, purifying all negative qualities and maximizing all positive qualities. And also key is developing, a sense of equalness with all sentient beings and putting their needs before your own. This is a path that takes place over eons of time. It's a gradual path to enlightenment. It's something anyone can do, which is marvelous. Doesn't have to be a monk or a nun, but you do have to bring the principles of your intention, your bodhisattva intention, to absolutely everything you do. And that includes right on the spot when you've totally lost your you-know-what. Because you've feel like you've been treated unjustly, unfairly. Isn't that the worst thing? Or you've been beaten up or disgraced or whatever it is. You have to bring your Bodhisattva intention to that, okay? So you have to find that ease, that unconfusedness, and that compassion. And you have to think about the other person before yourself. Isn't that amazing? So this is like turning our whole societal sense of self-righteousness on its head. And it's very radical, and it's a little irritating. When you first hear about it, it's annoying. Because we all want justice. You know, we want to punish the other person. We want to change the other person. We want them to apologize. We want everything, right? Because we're a victim. And on a societal level, that's fine. But on a personal level, if we're putting our development first, before everything else in our life, our spiritual development over the long term, not this week or today or this hour, but over lifetimes, we have to be consistent. So let's go through how a Bodhisattva would deal with being abused. And I feel a little bit of fear when I'm talking about this, because there's so much investment in our righteousness. I don't know how else to put it, but in you know, no justice, no peace. And I'm sympathetic to that point of view. But here we're talking about our spiritual development, not about society. Of course, there's overlap. So anyway, when you feel like when you're really ticked off, the expression, I really love it, from the ancient literature, is it's like a poison arrow has been shot through your heart. Isn't that perfect? And on top of all these miserable ways it makes you feel, it drags everybody else down around you, because you're walking around like a sourpuss, and all you can talk about is this person that did you wrong, and you're mad all the time. So all the people around you are like this, and they're trying to figure out how to get out of the room with you. They're sympathetic for about 5 minutes, and then, you know, their energy is really negative, and they want to get away from you. I'm just being honest here. It's not sexy. I mean, unless you were raised in some family where all the people you admire were angry all the time, and it became a virtue, then that's very sad. And it's good to train our minds out of that. But for most of us, it's something like that we just want to get away from. So what are the classifications of patience? So there's 3 kinds of patience, and we're going to talk about them. Patience is a feeling of being at ease toward the one who caused you harm. So how do you do that? First, you look into the nature of the person who caused you harm. Who is that person? Were they really acting? Did they have any freedom? Were they freely abusing you, or were they under the control of something? Were they under the control of their own rage? And we now, with psychology and everything, we can go back and think, oh, you know, they were beaten when they were children. They have their own trauma. That's why they're blowing up. Or they've been there PTSD from war, or they're in Bay Area, actually everywhere, methamphetamine, which takes control of your mind completely, makes you angry and paranoid. And so you look, instead of just, you're stepping back a step, right? From even though your heart is pounding and you just want to sock them or scream at them, you're thinking, wait a minute, where did this come from? Is this person really in control of themselves? And really, they aren't. They wouldn't have done it if they were in control of themselves, you know? So they were under the power of hatred or drugs or whatever, alcohol. And then, in addition, there's your karma. You know, you may have, this is the traditional belief, and you can take it or leave it as you wish, but it is what we sort of decide to embrace as Western converts, is this idea of karma. And so it may be your own karma ripening, let's say, from you having abused people or animals or whatever in any realm you were in a past life. or in this life. And now it's coming back to you. So it really doesn't have anything to do with the person, the object of which you are now could be angry. And then the other thing is going even deeper and looking at your body. If you didn't have a body, then there wouldn't have been anybody they could have beaten or raped or harmed in any way, right? So you were born in a human body because of karmic conditioning. And that really sounds weird from a Western materialist point of view, but I'm going through the traditional teachings, and you can either take it into your experience or not. And then, you know, if you didn't have a mind, then you wouldn't be making such a big deal out of it. It would just be like when you're being bruised and battered, and, you know, like your body would hurt, but it wouldn't have all of the emotional and all that thinking about it that makes our suffering 10 times more. So, or 100 times more. So if you didn't have a mind, you know, that person couldn't have harmed you. That's the way to put it. Then, you know, you can also think that both yourself and the other person are equal. Maybe you did something that was annoying. And that, you know, not that there's no justification for any of this, but looking at your part in things and thinking this is a relationship between the two of you. It's not just, although it may be inexplicable, I'm just thinking of, you know, my roommate just walked in the door and he just got socked, punched really hard by somebody in a BART transit station. It's probably quite a few months ago now. He was mentally ill. And that's a case where they were not in control of themselves. So it's hard to say that you had a relationship with this person. Well, you might think maybe this is your mother in a past life, right? So these are ways that you're gearing yourself down. Your heart rate as you're going through this checklist. Your heart rate is going down, 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 and not pounding so much. Your face is getting less red. You're getting a little bit more perspective on the thing. And you're moving towards your goal as a bodhisattva, which is to come back to the state of ease and compassion. That is where you live, you know? So then let's see what other thing they have on their checklist. We're still in the category of looking at the other person and your relationship with them, which is the first thing that you do. And then you go, you know, like another next level stuff is what benefit might there be a benefit in this for me? Well, if I cultivate patience in the light of this abuse, it'll purify a lot of my negative karma from the past. So that's really a positive. So that's a benefit to being abused. And then so you even go to the degree of saying, oh, thank you, evil person. You've given me a chance to practice patience. And then thinking all the Buddhas, you can think all your teachers, or if you have Bodhisattva teachers, I hope you do, would be pleased. So in their kindness, they've taught you the way of the Bodhisattva, the way of the Mahayana, or greater vehicle Buddhism, which is based on wisdom and compassion, and taught you how to have patience in the face of abuse and think, wow, I'm repaying their kindness by actually doing what they taught me to do. And then, so all in all, there can be benefits. Now, I feel like as me, the American woman, I want to add to that women there is a tendency for women to put up with abuse again and again, you know. This is not what we're talking about. You know, you're not trying to go and, you know, you have to get yourself out of harm's way. In addition, you're thinking if you're putting the other person's needs first, they're incurring, if you're a bodhisattva or aspiring bodhisattva, they're incurring terrible karma for harming you from their side. So you need to protect them by protecting yourself. And that's one, so you just can't let them go on and on. Verbally, physically, verbally, sexually abusing. This is not all right. Okay, so then the second category or classification of kind of patience there is. The first was feeling at ease towards the people who caused you harm. Actually, I didn't say towards the one who caused you harm, because part of the harm is coming from them. Part of it's coming from your own mind compounding the harm, right? By ruminating about it. Then there's a patience of accepting suffering. I think this is something we really, I think convert Western Buddhists really need to step up our game this way. So voluntarily accepting hardship. And you think, for example, of monks and nuns, you know, they all the lengths they go to learn about the Dharma, to live in difficult circumstances with a group of people, vow of poverty, and so forth. Not to mention not engaging in sexual activity. They've really, you know, sacrificed a lot, and at times, and they really know generally how to work together. They put a lot of work into Dharma activities that may go on all night sometimes, and you'll see this at our big Tibetan Buddhist events, with not monks and nuns, but well-trained yogis and yoginis and our lamas do love to stay up all night and prepare for a great ceremony or a great endeavor as a sangha. And they're singing a Mani mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, together. There may be children up part of the night, and it's a big community activity. And there's a thought in heritage Buddhist, Mahayana Buddhist societies, but all Buddhist societies, of generating merit, of putting this, just creating positivity, and moving ourselves by great fortitude along the path towards enlightenment. Isn't that wonderful? And I remember myself when I was just recalling that when before my 3-year retreat, I watched the people in the previous 3-year retreat. They came out in the middle of a great ceremony called a Drupchen at Pema Chodron, and they came in and they were like working unbelievable hours, putting on this whole, that year they put on this whole elaborate event with music and ritual art and so forth, is working tirelessly. And I said to one of them, my God, how can you keep going like that? And she said, well, after 3.5 years, you know how to, you've been doing this all along, so you know how to do it. You build up to it, in other words. So, you know, being in a 3-year retreat, honestly, is like being in the military. Maybe some ways harder, some ways less hard. But, you know, some very structured environment, and, you know, not vacation, not really a big thing. And totally dedicated to one purpose, enlightenment. So once you get into that structure and you get used to waking up early in the morning and persevering, taking things really seriously, the Dharma practices, and persevering a great deal of Dharma activity and generating merit that way, then it's okay. It's not only okay, but you feel like good doing that. And another sangha could be oriented around other things, and the Tibetan tradition tends to be oriented around doing great group practices, group activities. Those are great merit-making opportunities, but I'm thinking now of like Upaya Zen. They might be doing beneficial things for people and animals. This is a Zen group, they're very oriented towards social action. So they might all get together and stay up all night licking envelopes, mailing letters to politicians, or going out and working in a soup kitchen or something like that. Many Mahayana groups do that. A lot of the great groups and centers in Taiwan, Hong Kong, they're great social service people. It's the attitude, right? That doesn't matter so much what you're doing, I'm going to say. So you're accepting suffering, taking and thinking, I'm doing this in order to benefit sentient beings. And this hardship, like not giving in to sadness, tiredness, exhaustion, heat, cold, hunger, thirst, thinking, I'm going to benefit sentient beings. I'm going to attain complete awakening so that I can benefit sentient beings. So that's likened to a surgery for healing a virulent disease. So the surgery is very uncomfortable. Imagine what it was like in Tibet, and this is where the example comes from. Healing from surgery is never a barrel of laughs, and yet it's better than the disease, right? So like that, it's better than samsara. And victory in the battle of samsara, there's another expression they use. And of course, the battle is against your own afflictive emotions. It's not against some enemy out there. So really rousing this, like, I'm going to do this attitude when you encounter abuse or opposition that would usually make you angry. And then thirdly, wrapping up, we're going to talk about the patience in understanding the nature of Dharma. And here's what the Dharma, studying and coming to understand through practice and study the nature of emptiness, the empty nature of your enemy, your abuser, the empty nature of yourself, the empty nature of the interaction between you two. What does that mean? That discriminating wisdom is called prajna or prajna in Sanskrit. And so self and other, empty. And so we're actually, that's the sixth of the six perfections. So if you join me on the December 28th, Monday, we're going to have a guest speaker. I'm going to interview Aaron Weiss, who's just finishing up his doctoral degree at California Institute for Integral Studies, and he can read Sanskrit, and so he can tell us whether he thinks it's prajna or prajna, the way we often say in the West. And this discriminating wisdom, how do you perfect that? That's the topic he's going to be talking on, and I suspect he'll be back more. It'll be coming 1 week, but I think that's a big topic, so we can probably go through it in more than 1 week. There's a whole body of literature, very, very, very important in the Mahayana or the Bodhisattva way, called Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. And there's a extraordinarily long, huge, many volume sutra called Prajnaparamita, and then there's a medium length, I think 8,000 lines. And then there's the Heart Sutra. It's a pithy version of the Prajnaparamita literature. And then there's a Prajnaparamita in one syllable. What's that one syllable? Ah. So let's just relax for a moment and say, ah. 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 So we're wrapping up now as we go down. We've gone down a checklist for ways. First, looking at, how to think about the person who's causing you harm, appears to be causing you harm. Is it really? What's really going on there? A lot of different ways to relate to that. Secondly, was learning to accept some suffering in your life as for the sake of your path of awakening. In other words, for the sake of others, ultimately. And then, gaining wisdom into the nature of phenomena, outer and inner. ah. If we relax, ah. And soften that perspective of there's a person, they're doing this thing to me, I'm very real, they're very real, and there's no question that my perception of the situation is 100% correct. And relax. All right, so we covered Gampopa's chapter from the Jewel Ornament of Liberation on the perfection of patience today. Next week will be the perfection of perseverance. And 1, 2, 3, perseverance. Then meditation. Then Aaron will come talk about Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom. Thank you all for joining me today. Don't forget to say ah, and I'll see you next week at this time. Bye-bye.